I'm really glad to be back. I mean, I had a great time, but I missed my family. I missed talking to you guys, and I'm really excited to talk about the things that I got to be a part of while I was in Peru. I'm going to try to be concise and clear and not too rambly, but I haven't quite gotten my thoughts all, organized about how I feel about everything and what I learned while I was gone. I learned a lot. I was really blessed by being part of this mission, I didn't get a lot of knitting done, obviously, while I was there, but there were all these flights, and I thought for sure I would finish something. I didn't. The whole way there, I was kind of fighting a migraine, and I felt nauseated, and my vision was blurring, and I was just like, ugh, I don't want to look at anything that requires my eyes to focus, So I didn't, and I accomplished a little, but not a lot. You'll see. I wanted to thank Teresa Gregorio from Canary Knits. She mentioned this podcast on her newsletter, which if you aren't getting her newsletter, you ought to subscribe to it and check out her site. I'm sure you've seen her patterns. She's been doing independent patterns on Ravelry for a long time. Since I first got on Ravelry, I feel like she's had certain like Corona pullover and Sexy Vesty was a big one. And I wanted to knit that for years, and I finally did it, and I was going to wear it, but it's just been so hot here. I couldn't bear the thought of wool on me. And I think that being in a super warm environment like the Amazon, I am just come home flushed. Like all I want to drink is cold drinks, cold water, We sort of tormented ourselves while we were there, just talking about a nice cold Coke right now, a frosty mug, things like that, and just messing with ourselves because there's no ice there. There were no cold drinks except in a few restaurants when we were in a town that was large enough to have that. But anyway, Teresa mentioned this podcast, and she is part of a really neat project that should be coming out soon. I mentioned it on my blog a while back when it was first being talked about. It was the Twin Peaks themed collection called Great Northern Knits, and she's doing it with Leah Kokari Swift, and I can't wait for this to come out. I mean, I've been waiting a long time. I'm ready for these patterns to come out. I knit one in advance. It was cherry pie. It was like a zip-up Farrell pullover, really cool. Not pullover, a cardigan. And I even attached a zipper. I was so proud that I did it, but I did make it really long. Too long, I think. I was thinking long cardigan, but with a zipper, it was great when I knit it. But I've lost some weight since then, and now it doesn't quite fit right on me. And so I've been thinking of a way to kind of hack it, like pull out the zipper, rip back some, and maybe just make it straight without waist decreases, and then I could probably wear it as is, and it'd look a little bit baggy, but it would look like it's supposed to be baggy because I really love the Farrell design on it. Anyway, it was really cool. Lots of neat stuff. There's a cabled sweater. Man, I can't wait for it to come out because I know I want to knit it. That I think Teresa designed. So anyway, that happened, and that was neat. Really a surprise for me to see. And then we got a lot of responses for Deidre. She had said, like maybe after my first episode, but I kind of put them all three out at once. So I got all these comments on all three that are real similar. She started knitting for 2018. It's like a new goal for her. She's a little nervous about it because she's done other things but not knitting. And, it was just a challenge for herself. And so I'd asked anyone if you have tips, or we talked about resources we used back in the day. And a lot of you left some really good tips for Deidre. And now I'm thinking it wasn't even necessary because she commented recently that she's blown through dishcloths and some small things, and now she's on to shawls. And it's only February, so that's pretty awesome. It sounds like you've got it under control, Deidre. But you can read all the comments there, and I'm going to talk about a few of them. Julianne of the My Muddlings podcast, she left a comment via her podcast for me. She titled the podcast First Knits, and I'll have a link in the notes under this video that you could go watch it if you want to hear in detail about how she first started. But, she started with a one-row scarf, which I'm thinking I've heard about that kind of design. It's one where you don't do a row, turn, do your next row back. It has more to do with the kind of decreases you do, that you just keep going and going and going, and it's not that linear, go down, turn, come back, That's what I'm assuming. And the ones I saw on Ravelry when I looked it up, they were kind of lace. So that sounds a little more complex than the kind of scarves I started with. But Julianne said she started with that, and she had a lot of yarn that she just wanted to kind of try. May as well try knitting. She had planned to crochet a bunch of things she didn't get to. Then she was going through a period of depression, and it was really therapeutic for her, which I'm sure we can all identify with. I feel like all of our families are a little touched with a melancholy, or all of us are a little bit lean toward the melancholy at times. I know that I do. Sometimes I think creative people, if you kind of are very aware and you're looking and you see into your surroundings and the things happening, it can hit you hard when you see the negative things or the sad things. And so you've got to balance it somehow, and creating something, doing something creative that's positive, like making things, really is a good balance. So I identify with Julianne on that. Then she went on to things like garments that didn't work well, like a mohair cropped cardigan. And I don't know what kind of yarn she used, but I'm thinking of some of the Angora-y mohair things that are available in hobby stores. And you know how alpaca and mohair, it can kind of drag and get longer and longer. It didn't work for her. She ripped it out. But she really found her stride. She hit her stride with some of Shannon Cook's designs from either Journey or Island. I don't remember which, probably Island. She did Aunt Roar's, that sweater with a really cute neck placket with the buttons, and the Onward shawl. I think she made 2 of them. And I think, Julianne, I remember your Aunt Roar's when it came out, because I was on the Very Shannon boards, and we may have even met on Very Shannon's Ravelry forum, because we've known each other for a while, and now we're Instagram friends too, but before it was just Ravelry. And I think I remember your test knit for Aunt Roar's, because when it came out I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to knit that, and I loved knitting that. I still have it. It might fit me now, but it didn't fit me for a while, so I wasn't, I could squeeze into it, but mine's really heavy, and you don't want to squeeze into something heavy, especially when you live in Texas. It's just not comfortable. But I loved the button method, the method of doing the buttonholes. I love the way the top looked, and then the chevron pattern down the front. So anyway, I remember your Aunt Roar's, and it was beautiful. She just mentioned, that along the way, she used the Very Pink tutorials and Ravelry. Didn't really get into books. I am a real book hoarder, and so I use books. In fact, I buy books and pattern booklets that I don't always even knit from, but I'm sort of, I don't know, I just like looking through them, surrounding myself with them, it's osmosis. I am this if I have it all around me. Kind of crazy. But Jane Bramley of The Rose and the Wren, I think, is her, it's like her Etsy shop, but it's also her Instagram name. She also said that tutorials were helpful, and her first knit was a fuchsia pink raglan sweater, which that actually sounds really cool. I've never made a fuchsia anything, but I thought about it, and I think I have some fuchsia and gray yarn I was going to stripe and make an Isabel Kramer or something. I still need to do that, because that's a really bright color for me, and it would be a little out of the box for me. So it would be a challenge. But anyway, she did it, but when she was blogging, something happened with the underarms, and they were probably, I guess, I'm assuming too big, kind of the opposite of a muscle, you know, kind of, you know, and it's hanging down, and she was just not happy with it. It was a blocking mishap. And then her second sweater was kind of a pooling and striping effect from not alternating skeins of a hand-dyed yarn, which that's one I haven't done. I've done lots of weird blocking. I've made sleeves too big for the armholes that I was going to set them into, ruined a really great knit. I have always alternated skeins, I believe, though, because, I don't know, it was such a big deal to finally get some Madeline Tosh and have something you could alternate skeins with that was so hand-dyed and beautiful. I didn't want to mess it up. And right now, what I'm knitting, I am alternating skeins obsessively, but I don't even think I have to, because this Sunset Highway is one of my projects. I really haven't worked on it a lot, but you can see, I mean, on the plane, it was easy to do, just little stitches, and I didn't have my elbows going and bothering people. I'm almost done with the body, but this is Homespun House Digital Bath, and I'm alternating, but I really don't even think I have to. I think I'm just being a little OCD about it, because I'm afraid of getting 3 inches in and saying, oh, I hate this. Because it's fingering weight. You know, you don't want to rip back fingering weight if you can help it. It's really pretty, though, isn't it? She didn't do that. And so that was her second sweater. It was a problem. But, like, if you go look at her projects and on her Instagram, she's so accomplished and such a beautiful knitter now. And actually, she does really great embroidered project bags, which I got one yesterday because it was so cute. She'll like embroider over a print. She's done some with like sheep, and she'll do like a little flower crown. It's really cute. Anyway, Jane, I appreciate your input. Jane also said a local yarn store was one of her great resources. There were people there, there were classes, it was very helpful. Pammy said, I'm supposing your name is Pam or Pamela. I feel weird saying Pammy, like it's almost rude. That's like an informal nickname. Do I know you well enough to say Pammy? I don't know. It makes me think of like a nighttime soap opera wicked woman character. He's talking to a woman named Pamela, and I don't know, trying to be smart aleck by using an informal nickname, you know, like, I wouldn't know anything about that, would you, Pammy? You know, it's just, I feel silly calling you that, but you have made your name on YouTube, Pammy, so I guess you don't mind. Pam started with dishcloths, which I recommended in the last episode. I didn't do that, but I wish I had, because dishcloths are great. They're small, you get to try all these different stitches. If you screw up and it's oddly shaped, does it really matter? I mean, isn't it going to be misshapen and disgusting in a week anyway, after your son cleans everything cast iron with it? I mean, yeah. So that's a really good way to do it, and you don't get bored because it's so quick. She recommended starting with those, and like Julianne and Lori, she appreciated the Very Pink tutorials. If you haven't looked at them, they're on YouTube. Just look up Very Pink. I don't know the lady's name, but they're really good. I've griped about like YouTube tutorials, lots of talk. You know, you're right in the middle of something. You just want to refer to something quick, and there's a lot of chit-chat ahead of time. I feel like Very Pink, they're pretty concise. I don't think she does that, and they're very clear. I've always enjoyed the ones I've used. I've never had to look further than that site when that is where I went for help. So Deidre, Very Pink, if you're interested. Good tutorials. And Lori, you know, who used those, also said that, like me, the Stitch and Bitch books by Debbie Stoller were pretty instrumental in getting her going. A great reference. And I was just thinking how our knitting generation, you know, I'm like in my mid-40s now, but, you know, from 2000 up, everybody learning to knit, Stitch and Bitch books were a big deal for a lot of us. And I'm wondering what the next generation, what their Debbie Stoller book is going to be. I talked about being on Craftster a long time ago, and Katie mentioned that she was on Craftster back in the day, and just out of curiosity, I went to Craftster and I put in my username, mamatronic, that I use on Ravelry, and it worked. I still have an account on Craftster. I still exist there. So I looked up some of their knitting threads, and I might not have searched well, but the last active thread I saw was about Debbie Stoller's first Stitch and Bitch book, which tells me that, Ravelry was coming around about that time, and they just kind of absorbed all the knitting content from Craftster. So what I saw there mostly is crochet, and it's not the same design as Ravelry as a site. It's a little more rough. It makes me think of Reddit, a little more independent and kind of, I don't know. I won't go back to Craftster, but I'm sure it has its place. And I liked it in the day, way back when. It was a really great resource. I got some free patterns on it. But yeah, that Ravelry, I guess we would all agree, it's the place to go. Lots of forums with suggestions and people answering questions, really helpful. And of course, if it's a specific pattern, you can usually get a hold of the designer or moderators for their site, for their Ravelry page. And then lots of free patterns, so it's a good way to try things low cost. And the dishcloth idea is a low cost one because, sugar and cream cotton dishcloth material is so cheap, it's just really, there's no reason not to try that. So a lot of them, and Ardrina recommended to me that I look for a local yarn store or look for classes at the one I mentioned that I found. And they do have a knit night. It's just that right now I'm too busy. I think it's that my son's senior year and soccer, there's too many nights a week and days that I'm busy. So taking a Monday and driving 30 minutes to go to this thing and come back, I would be getting home late. I just really don't feel comfortable doing it right now. But I am going to do it one day, and that is a good idea. But you guys use your local yarn store. Deidre, see if you have one around you, because that is a really good place to meet people and keep you motivated with a hard project. And classes are a good way to learn. Another thing that Jane said that I appreciated was, don't worry about using beginner knits when you're first beginning. If you don't really like them, what's the point? Do something that excites you. And so her first knits were lace and a Farrell hat, and she was really slow at it. I think she took a class for one, and she was the slowest in the class because she was a new knitter, but she was learning something that interested her. She had this great skill that she had accomplished after her first or second knit, which is unusual. Most people don't. A lot of people knit for years before trying stranded colorwork. So, here she has these skills, and she enjoyed the whole process, which it sounds like you're on a roll, Deidre, but that's a good little bit of advice for all of us. I mean, even a seasoned knitter, sometimes you just look at what you're doing and say, I'm not enjoying it, so I just need to stop. Do something else, Penelope had said that she was starting knitting now this year, and so that's a new thing for her. She's trying to make some time for herself, do some me time, and that's really good to do. She had said that like taking a cruise, training a dog, and learning to knit. These are some things she wanted to do for the sake of creativity, kind of sparking that in herself. And the advice that Jane gave, Penelope, start with something you like. You might find beginner projects that you really like. I did in the Debbie Stoller's books. But if you see something that's a little more complex, especially if you've got a local yarn store or somebody on hand to help you, by all means do it. I feel like I've heard several designers say when they started knitting, they knew a few basic stitches, but they didn't know a lot about construction, and they didn't want to use patterns. They winged it, and they just kind of fiddled with things, and they got it to work. And it may have taken longer, and I mean, probably they're not wearing the things they first made. It was probably goofy stuff, but they learned more about construction by just winging it than maybe I would learn in years of just following the patterns. Because I tend to like go like a robot, start a pattern, you know, go into like zombie mode and just do whatever it says and keep going. And then sometimes I don't do what it says and keep going, and that's a nightmare. I also appreciated you guys who left, Gina didn't leave a television recommendation. I had said, anything you guys are watching or reading, let me know. She had just said that she remembered Remington Steele, which I had mentioned that I was watching them again. And it made her think of her mom too. That's why I like to watch that show. I think of my mom and my heart feels all warm. She liked that. She liked Murder, She Wrote. And when I hear that theme song, you know what I'm talking about. You see her fingers typing at the typewriter, Murder, She Wrote. And then, you know, it's the little piano theme song. I think of my mom. So I don't know. It makes me feel happy. My husband knows if I've had a hard day, well, let's watch a Remington Steele, and I'm going to, you know, cheer up. But she remembered it. And, you know, a lot of people don't know about it. It's not like a big Netflix, or it's Hulu. It's on Hulu. It's not a big Hulu thing. But I remember being in 5th grade, and we were all like saying on some form the teacher gave us our favorite TV show, and everybody was saying like The Cosby Show. And I said Remington Steele, and the kids in my class were like, oh my gosh, what's that? You know, and I was embarrassed, but that's my favorite show. I wasn't going to lie. It's still fun to watch. And you know, Doris Roberts, that was like the first show I ever saw her in, and she had a fun role in that. She was a wonderful actress. So Leah did have a podcast and book recommendation. She recommended A Year of Less, or maybe it's The Year of Less, and I can't remember the author. It's Kate something. I'm thinking Flanders, but I think I might be confusing it with some other things I've read recently. In The Year of Less, this author documents just deciding that this consumer culture that we live in is just not good for her. She's always like kind of self-medicated with buying and buying and buying, and you get in this cycle of just constant consumption and waste. And she'd gotten in debt, then gotten out of debt, but still felt this drive, you know, to consume more and more and more. And she just wanted to see if she could break the cycle. So for a year, she bought nothing that she didn't have to. So like toilet paper, gas, utility bills, things like that she did spend on. But things like, you know, clothing, entertainment, I don't know about like eating out and things like that. I haven't read it, but I really am intrigued by the book, because it sounds like she has these things come up in life that makes it a little more challenging but interesting to the reader. And then she goes so far as trying to actually produce less waste at the same time. So I'm interested in reading this, Leah. I really appreciate your recommendation. Leah is the podcaster behind All You Knit Is Love, which is a podcast I've watched since, I guess, the beginning, and I love it. You haven't posted in a while, Leah. I mean, you haven't updated in a while, but like the last time you did, it was like you'd done like 1 million sweaters, you know, because of the space of time between episodes. I would love to see more of your episodes. But she also does Wild Handmade, and she'll do like a fabric project bags, and they're really I have one somewhere here. Oh, yeah. I was going to do this on my trip, but I didn't even look at this project. This is one of her bags. It's little drawstring bags, and I love the velvet of drawstring. This is a sweet little Liberty-like print. I don't know that it's Liberty, but and then the stitching is just a really neat little detail. I was going to do socks from this Sweet Sparrow Knits yarn, or Sweet Sparrow yarn. I don't remember the name. It's something like Peppermint Mocha, because you can see it's a micro stripe, and you can see the browns and then the little peppermint cream and pink. So I think it's Peppermint Mocha, but it makes a really, really nice micro stripe, and I'm going to do it, but I thought it might be the perfect traveling thing. I brought like 4 projects. I already had the heaviest suitcase known to man because I was bringing these blocks as a gift for the children that live in the village, and they'll play at the missionary's house. But yeah, then I bring extra knitting projects like a doofus. But anyway, Leah recommended that book, and she recommended the Slow Home podcast, which I'd never heard of. You guys have probably heard of it. It's an audio podcast. But I went to their site and I started listening to the last one. And they were interviewing a lady named Rachel, who they've interviewed before, as she's made different moves to different types of settings, you know, from a more rural place to a big city. And she found ways to slow their life down, make things simple while in Vancouver. And so, which is interesting to me. I would never think of life slowing down by moving in the big city. But then I watched people like Jacqueline of Brooklyn Knit Folk. She does her Vlogmas, and she's really busy, right? But things like public transportation, free, you know, Shakespeare in the Park, things like this, really, you can kind of slow life down. And by slow, I mean just a more thoughtful way of life. Doing real things with your time and not just sitting in front of a screen or working obsessively. So I thought that it was interesting. I didn't listen to the podcast episode where Rachel talks about life in Vancouver. I listened to the last interview with her where she spoke of moving to the mountains. And a lot of her friends, they thought that she was crazy to do this. They sold their home in a really competitive housing market, and they were just like, you're never going to get back in. How can you come back? And they were just like, oh, well, you know, if we rent, we rent. Which a lot of people, in a lot of areas, that is actually the wiser thing to do financially. But they did it first and foremost to spend more time with the child they felt like needed it. You know, they could slow their life down. She didn't have to work. Her husband didn't have to work as much. And so people accepted it easier because it's for my child, so it's okay. But I'm thinking, what if they had just said, we're doing it for us. We're doing it for our own peace of mind. We want a more quality family life. I think people would have given a little more pushback with that decision. But I really admired them for that. And I enjoyed hearing, like, she had the ability to volunteer more, to be more physical, to get outdoors, to exercise again, things that you tend to not have time for when you're just living under the pressure and rush of, I don't know, activities that are not as soothing to your soul. Like her husband. I mean, it's not that they weren't busy anymore. They were very busy, but it was a different sort of busy. It's less behind screens at your job busy. She said her husband is shoveling snow a ton, you know, down their walk, which he loves. It's very busy, but it's a very physical, kind of a pure type of activity to do. So I don't know. It resonated with me because I'm not a caregiver to anyone. I mean, I have a son, but I mean, I have a daughter too, but I have a son still at home. My daughter does exist. I love her. He's still at home, but he's about to graduate, and it's not like, I mean, you know what I mean. I'm not diapering him and making sure he doesn't get into the cupboard and run out in the street and things like that. So I felt some internal pressure, like, I guess I should be getting a job, you know, and I didn't finish college, so getting a job, you know, what is that job going to be? How fulfilling will that be? I could say, well, I need to go back to school. I don't feel ready to do that, and I don't want to do it just to get a job, just to make money. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that at all. And I'm certainly not saying that we couldn't use the money. It's not like we're set. I don't have to work. We are a single income family right now. I've had part-time jobs off and on, but I just, we live really simply. Like, I mean, you can't tell, but I mean, the smallest house ever in the, you know, the ghetto of our city. And that's how I want to live. I want to live a simple life. There's only like one home I know of that I would ever want to move from this one to live in, just because it's so old and beautiful. It's not big, it's nothing huge, but it's just really, oh, it's pretty. But we live a very simple lifestyle so that I could be a stay-at-home mom. And like I said, there were times where I did work part-time, so I was busy constantly. Those were really hard times, actually, for me, between my family stuff and holding a job. And the jobs I did sometimes were physical, like, yoga instructor, something like that, martial arts instructor. But I just don't want to work right now. I want to work. No, let me rephrase that. I don't want to work for a paycheck right now. There are things I feel compelled to do, like this trip that I went on. It happened to be in another country, but it's not all about traveling to an exotic locale. It just happened to be. There's projects happening around me that I feel compelled to be a part of. There are like the volunteering I do 2 days a week. I'm part of BSF. I feel like I know I need to be doing that. That's not something you get paid for. I want to have room for those things, and I do feel like now that my life has slowed down, I'm back to taking care of things better around the house. For a while, papers collected, it was very disorganized around here. And I'm doing fine now, and it's, I'm just getting things in order. I feel like everyone appreciates a home that's neater. I have time to take care of my things, like my dogs. I have dogs, I need to walk them, and this gives me more physical activity. So all this slow living really is resonating with me. And then I'll just add to that, I did get a few tips on Iceland. Teresa Day said that she did the North Loop of the Golden Tour, and it was really cold when she went, but they had a great time. And they dipped in the Blue Lagoon, which is supposed to be really mild and comfortable any time of year. And she recommended it highly. And then Jane Bramley also said she camped the whole time she was in Iceland, which is so cool. So cool. That's really what I'd like to do, but Katie and I only have a short amount of time to be there. And there's things we want to do, like on the ring road, but and we've talked about maybe doing van camping some of the time, but we also have things we want to do in Reykjavik, so we're kind of in sync about 2 or 3 really good hikes. And Jane had said that, not sure if I'm saying it right, Skogafoss Falls, you see them. When you watch anything on Iceland or read it, you're going to hear about them. It's really beautiful. But she said the road that runs along the river that feeds the falls it's not a road, I'm sorry, it's a trail. And that is a great hike, which I really appreciate because we're looking for a few good solid hikes for while we're there. So I appreciated those recommendations. Thank you guys for responding to me. I don't feel like I'm talking to myself so much. What I wanted to talk about that kind of goes along with the slow living. Let me take a sip of this because it's like totally cold now. Which is kind of good because I'm not into hot drinks right now. I came back from sweltering hot humidity to a not so hot Texas, and a not too cold Texas. It's winter, but not really. And what I'm craving is those Topo Chico seltzer type flavored water that my daughter got me hooked on. I could drink like 5 a day. It feels like you're drinking Coke, but you're not. It's better for you. So, and it's just cold. It's so cold, and I just craved cold things to drink, which is kind of a baby thing for me to say. But if you don't know, where I was, and I'm going to have some pictures I'm going to put in here and there, and I'm going to maybe have a separate video or slideshow at the end. I don't know how I'm going to do it. From this trip I went on. It's a mission trip, and by mission, I do mean, we had a purpose, a plan, a project we were working on, and it was trying to represent Christ where we went. So when I say a mission trip, it's not like, we went to just help people. I mean, we did. I mean, we were helpful. I know that I was helpful, and that felt really great. But there's an exchange, you know, when you go and to meet new people. And we're always blessed, too, when we do this. Anyone is. And like I said, it's really not about where you go. There's a mission on our street, like with neighbors. There may be a family member I just feel like compelled, I need to write them a letter. I need to communicate with them more. So, you know, it's all random. It's just kind of whatever you're led to do. But I got led to this project, and we had some money in a fundraiser fund at our church that we had been saving. My son wasn't going to use it this summer. My husband's like, you should go do it. And I haven't done anything far away in like 7-8 years. So I was excited. And the group that I went with was great. It was a small group, but all of them are really used to being in different locations, doing a job, doing it with a great attitude. We were a good low maintenance group. You know, we aren't picky about what we eat, and you know, I say it was really hot, but I mean, it wasn't like an ugly thing that I complained about. It was just, I was amazed. How can any place be more humid than Southeast Texas? And I totally should never complain about humidity again, because that is a humid environment. It was really neat to work with them. So 3 of the people in our group I have gone on missions like 3 times with before. And then one, I knew about him. I know his sister, and he and his wife had been in Africa for years working on a project to benefit women and children. And then a new person came to the group that I had never met before, and it was really great to watch him at a time in his life where, you know, he's grieving. He's had a loss. And to just come alive doing this that he felt so good about, and he was so in his element. So it was exciting. Our mission was to dig a low-cost well with the people in this village called the 9th of October, or Nueve de Octubre, in Peru. And we were doing it with minimal equipment. It was meant to be inexpensive with simple tools and supplies that could be found anywhere. So it's, in other words, it's kind of like our church decided to sponsor this project with the Kokama Project. The Kokama Project is put on by a missionary couple who decided to retire to the Amazon jungle. And talk about slow living. They went, I'm going all over the place, just bear with me. This couple's great. They were really neat people. They went on a mission trip, kind of like what I just got back from. It's just like a 1-week thing. And while they were there, they heard of a pastor in one of the jungle villages who had a stroke and might be dying. And would they want to go and be with him and pray with him? There's not a lot of pastors out there, and they're really isolated. I mean, it's hard to travel far, and like some of these places you can only get there by boat after getting to Iquitos by boat or plane. So it was a big deal if they could just go and be with him, like fellow believers, to comfort him. And so they said, sure, we'll go. And they went this little visit, and they met the people of this village, this pastor, and they just fell in love with them. And they just knew this is where we need to retire to. So after they retired early, they moved there. And so leaving a Houston area environment to go to the Amazon jungle was very slow living. Where they live, they have a generator to run a refrigerator at night, during the day. At night, they turn it off. And there were batteries set up, like car batteries set up with wiring and like 12-volt outlets. So like kind of like your cigarette lighter in your car, it was that kind of outlet. And there were fans that we could hook up to those outlets so that we could be cool. They did that for us. For me and Barbara, the other woman that went in our group, we were kind of spoiled to have, our own little cabin and fans. But they do. So they do without electricity quite a bit, and they live in a home. It's like a one-room home. It's got a little bedroom, basically the size of their bed. In the back, it's an outdoor toilet, outdoor shower. And just, I mean, you flush by dipping like rainwater out of a bucket and you dump it. So you manually flush. Everything takes a little more time and more steps, but you're doing less, you know, and it's beautiful there. I can see why they fell in love with it. It's beautiful. They can sit on their front porch, and their home is like a small, makes me think of a beach cabin. It's up on piers. Everything is connected with walkways. The rooms are like they have their home. There's a separate kitchen. There's this big room where they have meetings and things and host events. And then there's a little, you know, cabin, like building where they had like places for us to stay. They have visitors. Part of what they do is host pastor trainings, and it's free. They invite these pastors in the area, by the area I mean like all over the jungle, to come in and be trained by people they bring in. They bring their families, they feed them for a week or two. It's really neat, and it's been really good for those pastors. They've enjoyed it because, you know, they can't go to seminary. It's not like in the United States. So that's where they retired to, and they've really taken slow living to heart. And I enjoyed so much. It was so refreshing to be in that lifestyle. The women of the village really bonded, the men too, with both of them, but Marcy really bonded with the women of the village. They have a real close connection, and it's nice. It's like family, and I enjoyed seeing that. The people in this village are called the Kokama people, and they're very warm and friendly. I felt like they were very welcoming to us, and I appreciated it so much. And they worked with us. The digging method is really physical because it's simple. It's simply made, and I'll have a video of how the drilling is just someone pushing down, pumping down, and a rope over a pulley is attached to us in the back, and we're pulling on this rope. It's like oars. You know, we're pulling, and that was often worked by us, several in our group, and women from the village, and I so enjoyed working with them. And getting to meet them, I think that working together for a common goal, something good, is like my favorite feeling in all the world. That teamwork feeling. There's like raising small children was so great. That's the best. Being with my family, you know, and then there's working as a team. It's my favorite. So I was in heaven. And we worked. It was hard. Okay, so that's what we were there to do. But we had one roadblock after another that came up, and what I got out of this, besides getting to be part of this great thing and making new friends and getting a nice dose of slow living in a beautiful tropical environment, was I learned about waiting on God when you don't understand what's going on, but you have no further direction. There's nothing you can do but wait. I am of the mindset where if something doesn't look like it's working, I immediately start, well, what can I do to tweak this? And why wouldn't this work? I thought I was supposed to do this, but it's not working, so maybe I'm not supposed to do it. And self-doubt and just thinking. First of all, the people there, they're not like that. They're very in the moment in their lifestyle. Like their cultural thought process is very in the moment, which works for slow living. Whereas like I'm on, worry wart on crack or something. Not really, but I didn't get worried about this project and all the things that came up because I wasn't in charge of it. I was literally like, I'm manual labor, you know, tell me to pull, I pull, tell me to push, I push. And so I just could watch and see what would happen, do my job and wait. But were I at home, where it was my yard and this was my project, and that can apply to relationships, anything. If something doesn't seem to be right or working, I immediately start overthinking. It was a great example to me to see how the leadership of this project handled it. The missionary who was kind of leading this process, his way of handling it, and our pastor who was, you know, brought our group, he was the leader of our group to bring us there to do this. So we bought a lot of the supplies for this well, and we were providing a lot of the manpower, some of the know-how, because some of the men had done things similar to this before. It would have been easy to say things like, this really isn't working. I mean, it took us 2 or 3 extra days we spent in Iquitos because we couldn't even get to the village because there were strikes on the road. And it could get violent. So if you try to break the picket line, you could get, bottles thrown at you, the tires are burning and things. It's not that the missionaries wanted to break the picket line, it's just we had a limited time to get there and help these people with this project. They're waiting on us, And would there be the manpower later? Don't know. And the problem with this well is it had been started before and abandoned because it took so long. The manpower left, and then there just wasn't enough people to finish working on it. And it would have almost been easier to start at a new drill site. When you leave it and all the sediment comes in, it's just a big mess to clean up and then continue digging. So we could have said, well, what's going on? Why are we so late, But everyone kind of just held their tongue. Well, let's just wait and see. We know we're here to dig this well. And if we get in there, that's what we're going to do. But what do we do in the meantime? We just looked around. And the first day we did some touristy things. I think I put some things on Instagram. I held a sloth, I held a snake, I held a monkey. And while we were doing that, we happened to meet 2 different pastors. There's not that many pastors there, but one was driving the boat that we were taking. And one of the interpreters, he knew, he works with missionaries a lot. He's a guide and interpreter, and he knew of these pastors. So he knew we had a day to just wait and see if the strike would end. And so he kind of got us together with these people, and he introduced the missionaries to 2 new pastors that might want to go to their training. So one was driving the boat we were on, and then we went to a village. The Yawa tribe had I guess you call it a tribe. There's a people group, and they put on a performance, kind of some of their cultural heritage, and they do that for tourists. I don't know how many tourists are there because it's really remote, but they began with singing hymns, and they wanted to pray with us.
The girl who showed us up.
Yes! All right.
Then after all the presentation was over, he showed us his church, which they're still building, and he only asked this, that we would pray that they would better understand the Bible. Because, I take for granted, I'm sure a lot of us do, whether we're believers or not, there's a lot of concepts in the Bible that we just grew up hearing about. like there's all these phrases we just throw around, like once saved, always saved, or fall from grace. I don't know, just, different issues that Christians debate, predestination. And I mean, a lot of people in different places in the world, they didn't grow up hearing about this, and they don't even know what that stuff is. And there are some things that would even think are basic, because I got exposed to it as a child, that they're learning, and they're so excited to learn, but there was no one to teach them. So for him to only want one thing from us, that we pray that he would better understand the Word of God, I thought that was really, that said a lot. And it said a lot about what the needs are there. So it was really wonderful that by us taking this little tour, we got to hook the missionaries up with this pastor in his village, because they've invited him to their next pastor training. And if he can afford to leave whatever work he does there for 2 weeks, it's paid for him and his family. And they can, not only will he learn, but it's a really nice environment that Sam and Marcy have set up for these people. That village of 9th of October is really it's just a nice place. So the second day, still can't get in. We wake up to find out the strikes are still going. So we look for some sort of ministry we can do. And our interpreter knew of an orphanage and some of the people that work there. So we thought, well, it's summer. Maybe they have a lot of downtime. We can have throw a party. So we got some sweets and Inca Cola, and some ladies that worked at the orphanage made really nice chicken sandwiches for everybody, the kids and us. And we did this thing called the story cloth. It's like a big quilt, and each square is a different picture from the Bible. And me and a couple other people who have done it several times, we just took some of the high points, because we didn't want to make it really long. I mean, there are some people that they're a real oral culture, and they can listen to the story cloth. It can go on for an hour, and they can have it memorized, because they grasp that so fast, because that's their culture. Whereas I would never be able to memorize something I heard like that stretched out over an hour. But anyway, here, I mean, these are kids. We tried to make it brief, and there were still little ones curled up on the floor asleep by the time we were done. But we enjoyed doing it, and we felt like that's what we needed to do. And then we got to visit with some of the kids and talk to them. I don't know if they get a lot of visitors there. They were certainly well taken care of. It was a state-run orphanage, but it's sponsored, I think, through a Catholic church organization, and it was a nice place. But, I'm seeing kids that are 17. They're about to be on their own. They're not going to be there anymore. They're around my son's age, and I'm thinking, do they have any training there I don't know what the opportunities are like in Iquitos for young people. I would think it might be harder than it would be where I live for them to find work and something to do. And I don't know, my heart was so full talking to them. It made an impression on each of us in a different way. And the good thing was, these two missionaries that we've gone to visit, they met the people that run the place, and they're going to probably have further projects they can do there. I know that their hearts were burdened for those especially that are about to, older teenagers that haven't been fostered or adopted. That's a hard situation for them. So hopefully some good will come from that. I know one good thing came. Our pastor was pulled aside by a lady that worked there, and she asked him to pray with her. And she talked to him a little about what's happening in her own life, some really hard times, and he was able to really encourage her. You know what? I'm okay with a well being delayed a day for one person to get encouragement that would not have otherwise. So I thought that was great. So we wake up the next day, we're going to get to go into the city of Nauta, and take our boat to the village. So the well project is going to start. And that evening we went and looked at the site and we got busy working, and we really spent that whole evening just trying to clear out the mess from when the site was abandoned. I'm thinking it was like maybe 15 feet were dug at that point. And so that was already done, but then it had all kind of collapsed in. And so we kind of cleaned that out, and then we were ready to go the next day. But it was a really tedious, hard process. And our group was an older group. I'm 44. I was the youngest person there. There was a lot of gray hair. In fact, one of the girls at the orphanage was like, "What are you even here for?" She's kind of sassy. "What are you even here for?" She said it through an interpreter. And I'm like, "Well, we're here to dig a well in a village nearby." And she goes, and she looked at all of us, and I said, she goes, "With who?" And I said, "Oh, we're going to have help. People in the village will help." And she goes, "Oh, okay. I said, "Why? Do you think we're old?" And she's like, "Yes." And so, you know, that's it. But that's pretty much a nice testimony, too. To have older people, I mean, there are people in their 70s in our group working hard. They have some know-how that was invaluable, but also just dogged. They weren't going to stop. They were not going to give up and stop. So one of the problems we had with this well method is it was devised in West Texas by Water for All, and it's been used in Bolivia and Africa. I would say thousands of wells have been dug, 1,000 using the method. But it's always been in arid climates. This is mucky clay, wet ground that we were drilling through. And the bit continually got clogged. And we have several bits that we changed throughout, you know, for different layers that we're going through. Nothing would work on this muck. And, you know, you stop drilling for just a second and it all starts kind of collapsing and muck again. So we were really struggling. You know, and if you pull out the well, the first 20 foot of the well stem, the pipe that digs down, is heavy. It's metal. After that, it's PVC, but it gets really long. I mean, we went down, we were around 40 feet, and pulling it out means you have to take off a part. It means these men are leaned over with pipe wrenches holding this heavy thing while someone unscrews a coupling and pulls a piece off, and then they lift up and then they move the pipe wrenches, and it was this complicated process. And at one point, the heavy part, the metal drill stem at the bottom, fell down. It slipped through a pipe wrench, fell down into a 40-foot well. So, you know, what are we going to do now? I think that some of the men in the village were ready to give up. They weren't going to say it, though, because they were very grateful for the help, and they were not complainers at all. But they were thinking, this isn't going to happen. Why is this not working? It's not going to happen. But like I said, nobody in the group had heard anything different that we were supposed to do. It's like waiting on God. You do what you're told, and then you just keep doing it and wait. And the big lesson for me, again, was that, you know, you don't run your mouth the whole time and state the obvious. This isn't working, guys. What's plan B going to be? Nobody did that because there was no plan B. That's what we were there for. There was nothing else God presented to change our plans, so we kept at it. That was a critical moment. And the man that went in our group that had never been on a mission trip before, who had said he was coming from a time of mourning in his life, he was like MacGyver. I mean, in no time, we had found connected the rest of the pipe to that drill stem. He used a stick that a guy whittled down with his machete. He used a stick, a string, and a magnet. And he found the piece, and he got the other piece to fit in it, making kind of like an awl. And we had it. You know, it was great. And he came alive. I mean, he was completely helpful anyway. But this was something that like only he could do. And so it was wonderful, but it was also good for the men that will be making these wells in the future that live there in the village, because they got to see some problem solving. And you know how I said they have a very in the moment way of thinking. Well, one thing that, you know, our group can lend is a little long-term planning. Like, you know, like I said, I can take thinking things through too far. It's not good. I need that slowed down in the moment. But as far as problem solving and planning, that's something that the missionaries had to offer these people. And so it was a great experience for them. They know how to solve problems when they dig future wells. And then, in a kind of an act of, I don't know, it was real flexible and humble. The missionary that was leading this, he said, you know what? We keep getting clogged up in this clay. And the truth is, I'm wanting to follow this model from Water for All because I want it to be something that can be reproduced here. I want them to see how to do it and people to be able to be self-sufficient. He said, but the truth is, here in this area, people do have access to water pumps and they have gasoline. No one has ever dug one of these types of wells here in the Amazon, so let's use a water pump. Let's use gasoline. Let's just add that to the model, and that may be something that has to be done from now on. And he was just being really flexible about it. It wasn't like it was all, my project's going to be my way. He was like, why be rigid? And so the last day that we were there to work, he got up early, went with some men, took a boat ride to Nauta, got the pump, got the gas, came back, and we had it done in no time. By that evening, the well was finished, the casing was placed into it, and the filter, and they were getting clean water.
Casi tenemos.
Jason.
Well, after several days of frustration and several days of solution finding, we finally got to this point, and we have hollowed out the rock layer. We put the casing in that has the filter part on the bottom. We put gravel around it, and then we put clay on top of that to seal it. We need some more clay. But basically now all they need is a pump on top, and you got a well.
All that's left is for the young couple that the well was for to make a hand pump for it, which won't be any problem for them. They're really handy and they're really strong. Everyone there works really hard. So that was really long, and I bet you were bored, but oh well. This is my podcast. I can do what I want. I loved working with them. I liked the example that I got about working, waiting, and not running my mouth. Not stating the obvious. What's the point of that? Wait and see what's going to happen. Because if I had said, or if someone had said, hey, look, y'all, this isn't working. What are we going to do? That really would have been a lie, because it was working. It was working. And a lot was accomplished in that slow process. A lot of invaluable problem solving was seen by the people that are going to be doing this over and over again. They have a great grasp now on how to do this, and when things go wrong, how to handle it. So that's super helpful for them, and it was good for me. It was good to be doing just physical work. It was good to be working with other people. I enjoyed meeting the women that I met, the women and the men, but I mostly talked with the women there. I enjoyed getting to talk with them and trying to make opportunities to speak with them, even with the language barrier. And another thing I learned, I saw kind of a niche that I can fill. I mean, I was manual labor. I'm good with that. I can work hard. But also, I had the opportunity to talk to people and see them and get to know them. And I realized that that might be something I'm geared toward. I don't know. I don't really have this thought out very well. I know that I went on a mission similarly, and I use these foreign trips to foreign countries as an example, because they're really this great microcosm of, it's so removed from your normal environment that the things that happen there, they strike you, and you learn lessons that were always there in your real life and will be there, but it's just easier to see when you're doing something where you're not in control. You don't even know the language and you're kind of helpless. I don't know. That's why I'm using another mission trip as an example. But I was with medical professionals. I'm not a medical professional. Like I said, I haven't even graduated from college. So I have some college, but you know, what am I going to lend to a group? What do I have to offer other than, you know, physical strength? I have that. But one time I went and my job would have been to clean equipment and tools, and there just seemed to be no place for me. Every time I went to go do it, someone would grab it, no, wash it real quick. And it was like, almost like, you're not needed here. And I thought, well, why am I here? That was the first time I ever went on a trip like this. I've done lots of volunteer work at other things, but this cost money. And someone donated quite a bit for another person to go, which was me. So I'm using someone's donated money. Why am I here if I'm not useful? And I just had to ask God, what is going on? Why am I here? And I mean, is there something I can be doing that's useful to you? Because they don't seem to need me doing the job that I was there for. And he immediately opened my eyes to the actual people whose teeth were getting pulled. I mean, they get a shot, but like before the shot's hardly even taken effect, the line was so long that the dentists are wrenching at their teeth, pulling teeth out. And there wasn't a cavity filling machine. There was infections in people's mouths. They had to come out. Super painful. A lot of these people were elderly, and with this group of people that we were with, there were IMR, and they're very stoic. They don't show a lot of emotion. They don't really open up to people they don't know. It was different than the Kokama people. They didn't like cry. They didn't complain. They just opened their mouth and they took it. But the interpreters would give me a little help, you know, words to say, and I remember one lady was getting several teeth pulled, and I knew it hurt her. And so I just took her hand. I asked if I could hold her hand, and I took her hand and I held it, and when they were pulling it, she was bearing down on my hand because it hurt. And I said, I know. And tears just started pouring out of her eyes, and I thought, you know, there's nothing wrong with a reserved culture at all. But if ever somebody needed a little bit of love, maybe when like 4 teeth are being yanked out of their elderly gums with very little painkiller, that might be a good time, you know? And that was something I could do. So I typically look for, okay, I don't have anything I'm doing right now, or I don't seem very useful or whatever. What can I do? And it's often just try to talk to somebody. Sometimes I look like a big doofus, and that's okay. I mean, kids like it when you look silly.
¿Su nombre?
Hitler.
Repite.
Hitler.
Hitler. Mi nombre es Michelle.
Michel.
Michelle. ¿Qué es?
Ninja. Tortuga.
Tortuga, yeah. Show me. Repite. No. Por favor. Okay. Ooh. It's going and going. Teenage Mutant Ninja Tortugas. Tortugas in the half shell. Tortuga power. You know the song? Oh, repita. Por favor. Por favor. Por favor. ¿Esa es la puerta? That's smart. That's smart. Oh.
They like me being silly. And by the time I left, the 9th of October, the kids were calling me Hermana Michelle, which makes me think of that Arrested Development episode with Hermano. But anyway, they were calling me Hermana Michelle. And I didn't tell them to call me that. And it was really sweet. And so I'm sitting at a table eating lunch with some of the women I've been working with this whole time. And these women, I've tried to talk with them here and there. I'm close in age to some of them. You know, we have children and some things in common. And then some of them are believers too. Some are not sure. Maybe they're on the fence. I don't know. But they're really kind. And one of them said, "So you leave tomorrow?" And through the interpreter, I said, "Yeah." But I touched my heart. I said, "But I'm going to miss you guys. I've really liked meeting you." And then they all started talking at once. And so I don't really know who said what, because the interpreter just started saying things they were saying. She said, they said that they're going to miss you. They said that they don't want you to forget them. Maybe you can come back. And then one lady, she said that she feels, because you're leaving, she feels like she feels when the missionaries leave to go visit their family in the United States. And that made my heart feel so good, because I really felt connected to them. But I think I'm sentimental, and sometimes things are sentimental and just happening in my head that other people don't feel, but that was shared. They felt it too. And so I do feel like I have these friends that I do want to go see again. I don't know when I'll be able to, but they'll probably be for future projects, because I think it's good when we, and look, I'm a Christian, so that's just going to figure into this. You're just going to have to deal with it. It's good when Christian brothers and sisters, when we communicate and share. It doesn't have to be far away. Like I said, it can be next door, but anyway. And then what the missionary couple did was they just moved into that village to be good neighbors. They aren't the preacher. They don't run the church. The pastor that they initially went to visit when he had a stroke, he recovered, and he says that stroke is what led them to come, and he had been praying for 40 years for another man of God to come to his village to help him, live the Christian lifestyle, before people. So it was a really nice experience. And then the couple that we did the well for, a lot of their relatives live with them, and extended relatives live around them. So a lot of people will be using the well, and I imagine they will share with anyone who needs it. They have another well in the city, but it hasn't been drilled properly, and it's not safe drinking water. And then using water out of the river is full of parasites, so it's not good for them. So anyway, she gave me and Barbara each a necklace that she made, and it's like a crucifix, and these are just wooden beads and nylon. But I thought it was sweet that she gave it to me. I bought things from, her name was Morele. It's just really sweet. Man, and she's a hard worker. She has a lot of kids, and like I said, that slow living, you hang your clothes to dry, you wash your clothes maybe in river water or water brought from that other well, carried in a 5-gallon bucket on your head. You have to go up and down the slope, and I don't really know. Their footing was great, because I was slipping and sliding everywhere in rubber boots. It's so muddy after a rain. But I guess if you live there and you know the terrain, it's not that way. Rodita made the rest of these, and I bought them from her. So it's an alligator tooth and seeds instead of beads. This one is beads, and the seed pod, which I recognized from my daughter's stint at a dual language school, Ojo de Vaca, the eye of the cow. And guys, I really need to learn Spanish. I mean, this is my 4th time to go to a Spanish-speaking place and not, and be, escolar, doing my hands like a stairs. I mean, it's really ridiculous. I need to just learn Spanish. Learn it well. And this is another seed with little seeds that are pretty blue and brown colors that she made. Beaded bracelets with seeds and twine. And then she also made this dish, which is like a woven basket dish, but then there's seeds decorating the corners. And it's a little stitch marker dish now for me. So that was nice as souvenirs. This isn't like a souvenir type of trip, but I ended up having some anyway because that was their handcrafts. They're pretty. I wanted them. And, you know, it helps them to sell and make money for their business. So anyway, that's what I was doing. My big takeaway was personally seeing how to wait, do what you know you got to do, and wait, and don't, you know, wait till you have your next instructions. If it doesn't change, then do it, and do it with a good attitude, not some all-knowing, I'm going to state the obvious here type thing. That was really good for me. And it was also good for me to see, I felt like God showed me some things that I'm good at. Little old me. Just, you know, simple things, but anyway. So thank you for listening to all of that. I came straight home from this, needing to finish my test knit for Elena of the gift of knitting. And then I got a migraine. You know, I never had any really bad while I was there. I kind of was fighting it off. It took medicine and prayed and it went away. But it hit me when I got home. One did. And it was from food I ate. I went out with my husband. He got me this necklace. It's a native clutter, turquoise. Whoop, this way. It's just pretty. He missed me. He missed me while I was gone. So I came home to dark chocolate and this. And I had a dried piranha on a stick for him for Valentine's because I got home on Valentine's Day. But, you know, I could have rode home with the group in a van, but I told him, hey, you don't have to drive all the way to Houston to pick me up at the airport. It's okay. But he's like, well, I was going to anyway. I was like, but you know, you just got off work, you're tired, you're going to get home late. You don't have to. But I was secretly hoping he would. And he was like, well, I already planned to, so I will. And so I let him. And he told me, oh yeah, I wanted to see you. So that made me feel really good. And so we got to talk, and I told him all about it on the way home. But we went out to eat the next day, and I ate a bunch of stuff that doesn't agree well with me. I always get a migraine. I tried to have a glass of wine. That was stupid. Because, you know, Valentine's, you think fancy food and a glass of wine, and oh no, never again. Never. 3 days of headache over that, and just wanted to throw up the whole time. So anyway, I didn't work on my edge sweater, but here is where I am on it. Yeah. I have the body completed, one arm, and I'm almost done. I mean, the second arm is going to be done today. The neckline, it's going to be done today. I'm going to have it blocking tonight, and hopefully I can wear it for some photos Sunday. That is the day that I'm going to try to have finished pictures. And it might be the day that she releases the pattern. It may be Monday. I'm not sure. I felt like I didn't do a great job, but I told her from the beginning, I've got this trip, and I could not fit this in my luggage with the mega block set. It wasn't mega blocks, but a big set. This is just too bulky, and that would not have worked in the plane. I brought so much stuff. Like I left, the clothes that I wore, I left. They were like men's basketball shorts most of the time anyway, so anybody could wear them. And people in Peru, I think in general, tend to be shorter than people from the United States. So like men, they were men's shorts. Any man there could have worn them. They're also a little more fit than us, so you know, like the men from our group, they could leave their clothes, but they're larger, you know, than these fit, you know, small men from Peru. They're all, you know, ripped and healthy, and you know, they work hard. So you know, I left some of that. I left my rubber boots. They were super heavy, and that's useful to anyone because they're always doing things, work projects there. So I came home with a much lighter suitcase is my point, but still, I don't think I could have brought that. On the plane, I showed you Sunset Highway. I worked on that quite a bit. I'm almost to the armholes in my Weekender by Andrew Mowry. Now remember, right now this looks like the right side, but it's actually the inside. The reverse is going to be what shows on the sweater, and you can see my little slip stitch seam there. It's really nice. So it's almost the length that it needs to be to start the armholes, and then that'll go pretty quick. Not a lot of progress, like I said. I think that's pretty much it. I didn't start the sock like I planned, and I planned to start maybe the Herbawi shawl. Didn't even do it, but I'll show you when I do. And that was going to be, because it was in like our school colors, it was going to be for my son's soccer season, which is basically almost over. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've done as far as work. So someone left I forgot to mention two comments that I received. One was Caroline. She had commented maybe on the second episode or the first about how she was in a similar situation as far as I lost grandparents, but she lost her parents in the last years or so and had a really high pressure job that she quit. And so she's living on the Orkney Islands, and she runs and gets outdoors. She loves it. She's making things, knitting. This just sounds like a really idyllic life. I don't know if she moved there to get away and do this slow living like I was talking about, or if she already lived there. I don't know. But I didn't even know where the Orkney Islands were. So I looked them up, and they're up there near Shetland, and Fair Isle is between the two set of islands, and that kind of got me looking up Fair Isle and the history. And I've been thinking, because I'm going to Iceland, and I'm almost finished with my current book, and I'm going to start the Icelandic sagas. I've been thinking about the Vikings a lot, and I looked up if they had ever had anything to do with Fair Isle, and it was a beacon site where they would have a beacon, kind of like a lighthouse type thing, to warn this Viking Paul that another Viking that might, supplant him was coming, and he had beacons set up, and there was some deception involved, and one of the beacons was lit on the Fair Isle as a false alarm, and that guy was killed, and then it was drenched so that it couldn't be lit to warn him that this other Viking crew is coming in. So anyway, not really much of a story there, but I was looking up how, and this is close to where Caroline is, like 50 people live on Fair Isle year round, and it's just such a small place to have this whole huge tradition named after it. I know that was stranded knitting history in other places, but I guess the motifs that we commonly associate with Fair Isle came from that place. But man, that is just such a great tradition to be associated with such a tiny little place. I know, like on Ravelry, anything Fair Isle or stranded, I tag it Fair Isle with no space between. So it was kind of neat to look that up. And I thought Caroline has a really good idea about just taking things slow, if you're able, any way we can slow things down. Celine had mentioned that she is trying to, her life had gotten really busy and her healthy eating went to the wayside, and several of you had said you were wanting to get back to eating less sugar, because I had mentioned that. I'm not seeing who said it, but she was trying to get back to healthy eating, which is hard to do when life is crazy and busy, but it's much easier when things are slowing down in life. So I wondered what you guys thought about the whole slow living thing. Have you started doing that? If you're a knitter, you're already doing slow fashion, somewhat, unless you only knit decor, but that's still fashion, dish towels, it's still, that's slow slow production. How do you feel about the slow living movement? Do you even care about it? Do you want to do it? Please leave some comments. I want to talk more about that next week. I'm so glad to have been back and been able to talk with you guys. This is my, I guess, personal challenge for 2018, and I'm sticking with it so far, but now I've got to take forever to upload this and edit it. So everything I talk about will be in notes at the bottom of the screen on YouTube, and also on my blog, where I'll have an embedded YouTube video. And I really, so far, I've really been doing real notes. Like if I mention a book or a this or a that or a subject, I usually have a link to it. But, you know, that may fall to the wayside over time. I don't know. I've just been enjoying being really anal about it. I hope you guys have a great week. Happy knitting, happy slow living. I'll see you in a few days, and hopefully I will have a finished sweater to wear, even if I just have to blast the AC so that I can stand wearing it for one whole episode. Thank you for your comments and for indulging me in this conversation. You guys, I really appreciate when you comment and talk to me about these things, because you're my crafting friends. And I know it's really weird to read a comment and I'm trying to answer and I see myself in the periphery of my vision up in the top of the screen, you know, from that episode, and the, you know, the screen's frozen on me, you know, something ugly. And I'm trying not to look, and I'm just going to answer, don't look up, whatever you do. And I really appreciate it, though. I really enjoy responding to you, and I love that I have the time to answer comments. Oh my gosh, for so many years, a few years, like 3 years, I was really struggling to answer any comments on my blog because I didn't have time. I really didn't even have time to blog, but if I threw something out there, that was it. I never looked at it again, and if you commented, tough luck. So I'm really excited. Sorry. I'm getting my husky Nora Jones voice. I'm excited to be able to interact with my friends again. So I will talk to y'all hopefully next week, should be next week, and maybe we can hash out how to slow life down and really, you know, squeeze the best out of our time and our lives so that, you know, it's good for our soul, good for our families. Bye-bye.